Here's how to make challah.
We're going to start off our challah by making a sponge or pre-ferment, which consists of 53 grams of sifted bread flour, 1.5 teaspoons of active dry yeast, and 57 milliliters of water at 110 degrees Fahrenheit. We're going to mix this until well combined and then let it prove for 30 to 40 minutes or until doubled in size. After those 40 minutes, you should see that it has grown in size and that there are lots of bubbles rising to the surface. Next, we're going to add 3 large eggs and give it a nice stir. Don't worry if it's a little lumpy at this point. Next, we'll add a 1/4 cup of canola oil, a 1/4 cup of honey, and 1.5 teaspoons of salt, giving it a good mix afterwards. We'll then add 343 grams of sifted bread flour and stir until everything starts to come together as one dough. Feel free to get your hands in there just to make sure all of the flour is fully incorporated. We're then going to turn the dough out onto a floured work surface and knead until fairly smooth and only slightly sticky, about 5 minutes. I like to move my dough around my work surface like you see here to pick up the excess flour and then add more when necessary.
Once your 5 minutes are up and your dough feels nice and smooth, cover and let prove for 3 hours.
After 3 hours, our dough should have doubled in size, so it's time to shape the strands of our loaf. Turn the dough out into a work surface and cut into 6 roughly equal pieces. We're going to roll each piece of dough into a very thin sheet about 1/8 of an inch thick. Next, tightly roll up the sheet lengthwise to form a strand. Then roll the strand back and forth between your hands until it's thin, even, and 12 to 15 inches long. A couple pro tips. This is one of the few situations where you should not flour your workstation. You actually want the dough to stick a little bit so that you get the tension needed to get the dough super thin. Also, as you can see here, I like to keep a tape measure next to me so I can see how long each strand is and keep things relatively even. Also, don't worry about making a perfect rectangle with these, but try to keep the sheet longer than it is wide.
All in all, the strand shaping can take between 15 to 20 minutes and can be a little bit tedious, but personally, I actually find working with dough pretty therapeutic, so I enjoy it. Make sure you place your strands parallel to one another on a parchment-covered baking sheet.
And now it's time to do the braid. So for this loaf, we're going to do a 6-strand braid, and it's definitely easier to show than it is to explain. So instead of trying to explain and failing, I'm just going to give some pro tips of this process. First off, pinch your dough very well together at the top so it doesn't come undone at any point. Second, if you lose the pattern at any point in this process, don't go back and undo it. You don't want to overwork your dough. And third, practice makes perfect. I watched the video that I learned this from on repeat and practiced with string before I tried doing it with dough. Once braided, cover the loaf loosely with plastic wrap and let it prove until doubled in size, about 3 hours. Next, we're going to make a simple egg wash by just whisking 1 egg in a bowl. We're then going to lightly brush this all over the loaf, making sure that you're getting both sides evenly coated and also get into all the nooks and crannies.
Preheat your oven to 350 degrees and pop your loaf in for 40 minutes, rotating halfway through.
After 20 minutes in the oven, we're going to check on our bread and rotate it 180 degrees to make sure we're getting an even bake on both sides. We're then going to bake this for another 20 minutes until it's a nice shiny dark brown just like this. Feel free to tent with aluminum foil if certain parts are getting too dark too fast. We're going to let this cool on the rack for 20 minutes and look at how beautiful this turned out. It's got a great color, is nice and shiny from the egg wash, and as you can imagine, it smells amazing. I gave it a quick tap to make sure it sounded hollow, and then I couldn't wait any longer and dug right in. One of my favorite things about challah is you don't have to eat this with anything else. It is perfect just on its own. And when you're having it fresh out of the oven, you get that nice crispy exterior and a light, fluffy, warm interior, which just melts in your mouth. I was actually planning to bring this to a friend's house to share, and let me just say the loaf did not make it there. Let me know if you make this. Bye!